Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Long boys blues, 1975. Using girls on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends. But Long boys blues, 1975.
Hey YouTube, Longboys Post 1975 and welcome to the weekly driving vlog. It's Sunday morning, you know what that means. I've just stopped for my McDonald's. I'm going to do a driving vlog simply because it's convenient. Well, hey, I do enough of them. And I've got my McDonald's, so as soon as I get home, I want to eat that. I don't like eating in McDonald's because I don't know, I don't like eating at McDonald's. Anyway, that's a rather random waffle start, but what do I want to talk about? You've read the title. And basically, nostalgic memories. Let me change the heat a minute so I don't fog up like a bastard. Nostalgic memories of hooky PlayStation games from the market on a Saturday morning. I very briefly touched upon this in my nostalgic memories of my PlayStation, and to some degree my nostalgic memories of my PlayStation 2, and also on one of the Friday night waffles I did with Alan. We talked about how, because he shared pretty much, albeit for a different system, an earlier system, a different time period, being the Amiga and stuff like that, but he shared pretty much the same sort of experience, and that was, and we both agreed on this, that nowadays you've got the dark web, but you go to the dark web if you want hooky stuff, dodgy stuff, movies, you know, even want to stream movies so you don't have to, you know, wait for them to come out or stuff like that. You would go to the dark web to do it. Back in the day, and I mean, and this was this started off pre-mainstream internet, or very early internet, but basically you would go to a physical location and you would buy this stuff, you would buy this media, you would buy music, you would buy games. I mean, piracy is nothing new now, and piracy was nothing new then, but yeah, you'd buy movies, you know, various media, like, you know, software packages and stuff like that, and you would buy games, and that was basically our dark web. Now, why am I talking about this? I want to talk about this because I do have a massive amount of nostalgia for this, because I don't know why, but piracy was absolutely rife in the mid-90s to pretty much the mid-noughties. I'm not saying it's completely disappeared, but it didn't even try and hide itself. When I say the dark web, I mean, at least with the dark web, you'd have to know where to go to look for it, stuff like that, just for the record. I don't use the dark web. I'm more than happy just to use Amazon Prime and Netflix and wait for stuff to come out on DVD. You know, I don't like fucking around, and things like that could ultimately destroy your computer and get you in trouble anyway. But yeah, back in the day when I said this was our dark web, it didn't even try and hide itself. It was very obvious and very visible, yet often ignored by the authorities up until a point. So yeah, talking to someone at work last night, and in their early 20s, and I love topics like this, but they don't have to make me feel old. And he was like, so how did you hack machines and stuff back then? I mean, God, it must have been terrible, and you must have had to pay full price. And I said, let me just stop you there. Hacking stuff is nothing new. Stuff is being hacked going back to the Atari 2600. There were ways to play hooky Atari 2600 games and things like that. It's nothing new. And then obviously tape-to-tape piracy was rife in the early 80s across all the, you know, the United Kingdom micros, and obviously the micros that we shared with other countries such as the Commodore 64 and things like that, and floppy abuse and stuff like that. It's nothing new. But then all of a sudden there was a brilliant time to be alive, because however expensive your game console was, like your PlayStation 1, mine was an original Japanese import as well, you know, when this explosion of software happened, gradually to get to the level where it was ridiculously cheap, yeah, it just meant you had more games than you could shake a stick at. You had more games at the time, you had to play the games. It got to this, you know, we often talk about it now, which is, oh my God, how many of your games do you actually play? How many of them still sit on your shelves? It was ridiculous then. So let's go back a bit. Right, so I got my Japanese PlayStation. I mean, piracy had existed to a very small degree on the, you know, the physical cartridge-based consoles back then, because I remember my brother had a Super Wild Card for his UK SNES, This is just after I got rid of my Super Famicom. And then he had some sort of zip drive thing for his Nintendo 64. But before that, obviously, I had a Japanese PlayStation, and I found out that, because I got it a year before it came out, that you could disc swap. As everyone knows, there's blue tack in the back under the switch that turns the power off. Disc swap, and you could play import, well, not import games, I could play UK games, but they'd be crap and pow. And then I found out that you could play backups. But backups initially started off just like one or two people blatantly advertising them in the back of a paper. I got my pirate US import of Resident Evil 2. But more and more it came to the surface that then people would start advertising, not just selling a couple of games, but you'd go there, pick up a game, used to go to this bloke's house in Clifton, and then he'd say, well, what else do you want? I've got this, I got that, and you'd start, you know, arranging to meet up with him every week. And at this point it was expensive. You were paying 15 to 20 pounds per one of these backups, often with a really, really poor, you know, photocopied cover or colour printed cover. But you didn't care, because you were getting stuff like Metal Gear Solid, right, granted, I actually beat that Japanese, Metal Gear Solid and Gran Turismo and Tekken 3 before they came out and stuff like that. But then it started getting a little bit more people started getting a little bit more abrasion in these magazines and stuff. And may I add, just for the record, my point on piracy, I never pirated back in the day. I never did. Alright, yeah, Spectrum and stuff like that, but never pirated on the PlayStation, because I didn't have a CD burner. CD burners were expensive, but when they started to come down, not to levels I could afford, that's when you would see this explosion of software that eventually ended up in the markets, which is I want to, you know, talk about being like a really big event of your week back then. But yeah, so I wouldn't do it, because, and what were the rules? As long as you could back it up yourself if you had the original. Then if you found a ROM online, you could keep the ROM for evaluation purposes for 24 hours. That was playing stuff on emulators. I think that might still be the rule on that. But backing up games to sell was when it was illegal. So I don't know if it's changed since then, but then back then it was just like, well, I've got no problem whatsoever buying these games, mainly because I spent all this money on all these consoles going right back to the Master System in the late 80s, and I spent, you know, even then when I was a kid, I was dropping, you know, 30 quid on a game. And so when they started releasing, I mean, I had the Japanese one, so I was paying 70 quid for my games. But when they started releasing really shit, unoptimized, bordered 50Hz shit, you know, on the PlayStation, the UK one, I'm like, I'm not paying for that, because that came, because I obviously, it was chipped, because after the disc swap I did chip mine, because, to save disc swap, because it would wear out, you know, it would be detrimental to the console. But because they produced, you know, the games were so expensive, and they produced, you know, really, really poor unoptimized versions, and I'd spent, you know, decade or such dropping a shitload of money on this. I thought, I ain't going to lose any sleep on this. And so it got more and more prevalent and common, and people were advertising more and more so in the back of magazines. And then one day, and this is when we got to the really late 90s, we just found out, one of my mates said, if you've gone to South Mead Market on a Saturday morning, and they were like, what do you mean? Go to a South Mead Market on a Saturday morning, right? Park up, pay your pound, park up in the hospital grounds, and then there's like 7 stalls. I mean, it was a proper market, a proper open air market for you to buy all kinds of stuff. But these people went there, and they were selling 3 PlayStation 1 games for a tenner with decent covers, and they were optimized. There was like a little, almost like the hack Commodore 64 games and Amiga disc images and stuff. There was a little menu at the start where it would let you pick whether you wanted NTSC or PAL, and as long as you had a TV that could accept the signal on the correct leads, even with the UK PlayStation, if it was, mine was Japanese anyway, but if it was modded, you were fine. And so it was 3 games for a tenner, 3 movies for a tenner. Obviously the movies were usually cams and came across 2 discs, but we didn't give a shit about that, and it became so prevalent that, I mean, you could go in on a Saturday, drop 20 quid, come out with 12 games, and there'd be all latest releases, or also ahead of release stuff. And then there was like hooky porn, seriously, porn games. Honestly, I never bought one, my brother did for a crack, and just thought, what the fuck? Yeah, like, you know, bootleg, homebrew porn games and shit like that. It was rife, it was everything you could get there. And this became almost the start, it got worse on my PlayStation 2, of me having too many games and then just shelving a load of them. At least when I had to buy my own, I mean, when I bought the Japanese ones, I rinsed and repeated it loads, but when I had to buy my own, and then it was somewhat cheaper, you know, copies were still expensive, like 15 quid. Like I rinsed and completed Gran Turismo 2, stuff like that, Tomb Raider. But when you were picking up this many games, this much on a weekly basis, you weren't playing them. You were slapping them in to see what they look like, and then sometimes more than often, they'd never get seen again. And you would just start giving loads away to your mates. But it was such a big thing. It became a social hub of the week, and you would you'd go out on the Friday night for a drink in the pub, like in Clifton, and then it would be, so like, what are you doing tomorrow? Oh, it's Southmead tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll meet you at the Friary. Yeah, we'll get we'll get a full English, yeah, and then we'll head on up and we'll see what they've got. And we checked it out, and we did this for like year after year after year, and not just for games but for movies, like I said. And then you would start getting screener movies creeping in and stuff like this, and then it started happening with the PlayStation 2, and then it started happening with the Dreamcast, and you'd suddenly start going to this market on a Saturday morning, and you'd be running into, like, I shit you not, 25 plus people from your friendship groups. And when I say that, I mean like your immediate friends, but then people you were acquaintances with, or people who were acquaintances of your friends, and you'd be bumping into everyone, and then you'd be spending a couple of hours there because it was like such a social thing, not because you wanted to hang out in a market, in a hospital car park where there's loads of hooky stuff, but being polite. And there were so many people. I hate this fucking chicane. They ballsed up Barragurdy when they put this in. Yeah, there were so many people that you would run into, and they all went there for the same reason. You usually got breakfast on the way in. It was fantastic. And so they started doing it with PlayStation 2 games. They break the games down across multiple CDs, and you would disc swap, and they drop out the music. Like the version of Grand Theft Auto 3 I had like pretty much no music whatsoever, just the odd track here on repeat, because they had to get rid of that for storage sizes, because they weren't burning them to DVD initially, because obviously early games, not Grand Theft, but early games on the PlayStation 2 came out on CD, and it was getting ridiculous. And like I said, my brother had a Dreamcast at this point, and they all managed thought the same thing, which is, how much money have we spent on these systems in our life? And I'm not buying a PAL game, because PAL games didn't get properly optimized towards the end of their life, of the system's life. Honestly, shocking, absolutely shocking. So this is, like I said, maybe we weren't to justify it properly like that. Don't know what the law is now, but then it was, you were right buying them. But yeah, PlayStation 2, stuff like that, Dreamcast, and again movies, and they become screeners and stuff like this. But this went on for years and years and years and years, and like I said, it became such a big part of my weekend. Friday night pub, Saturday morning, greasy spoon, get full English, go to the market, Southmead Market, buy loads of games, go back to your mate's house on the way home to your house, go through your games there, make sure they'd all work. We never even took them back when they didn't work, to be perfectly honest, and play them. And then, I wouldn't go out on Saturday night because I went out on Friday night, and so I just sit down and cane these games and buy walkthroughs and download walkthroughs, because we were creeping into internet land time now, where you could get stuff from GameFAQs, which is how I beat Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 2. But yeah, but this went on for years, and then all of a sudden overnight, I don't know why, but trading standards started turning up with police officers, because you've got to think of the amount of money they must have been losing from places like this. And I guarantee there was one of these markets in a big car park, a public car park, in every corner of every major city in this country. I don't know what it was like abroad. That's one of the other reasons I wanted to do this video, is I'd love to know what it's like in places like Australia, New Zealand, mainland Europe, and particularly North America. But yeah, there would have been these places all over the country, and it would have been always on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and it would have been hooky movies and hooky PlayStation games. And I'm sure it became a big part of everyone who was like a really internet gamer, diehard gamer, and had mates who had the same consoles and shared the same interests. I'm sure it became as much as a part of their weekend social structure as it was for mine. But yeah, it took trading standards ages to clap down on this, and then all the way in the very, very early noughties to, well, I don't know, because I wasn't here in the mid noughties, I was in Canada, but yeah, all of a sudden trading standards and the old bill would just start raiding these places, and then for a bit people would like have a fake front, and you go in the back and buy discs like that, but the old bill, the trading standards were getting sharper and sharper and sharper to this, and it completely disappeared overnight. Then obviously this kind of, you're into this, which replaced on tinterwebs. But yeah, it's weird, it was there for years and years and years, and then there was a little trickle of the old bill and trading standards, and then it was gone. and it left a big hole in our kind of our social weekend. That sounds so weird, but I'm sure that's why I'm asking this. Anyone from my generation must know that. You must, must have very, very similar memories, or even going back to the Amiga and the Atari ST days. Possibly the SNES, because I remember my brother was buying SNES games on disc for his Super Wildcard. But yeah, it was weird. It went. And I remember when I came back from Canada, it's like, any markets left now? Oh, where have you been? Oh yeah, you've been abroad. Absolutely gone. Zilch. Blown away overnight. You know. But yeah, for that, you know, I'd say a good 8 years when it was around and it existed. It was fantastic and I loved it. And like I said, it became a social hub on a Saturday morning. Anyway, I don't condone piracy. I've told you why we did this. Well, we didn't pirate, we just bought them. But as always, I'd love to know what you think. And did you have similar experiences with similar markets? And as always, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you later.